just an absolute great guy, visionary, and a guy that is changing lives on the ground in Oklahoma. So I think, as you guys know, I'm Joe. I'm the founder of Groundwork Project, and I'm here with Tevin McDaniel from the Foundation of Liberating Minds based out in Oklahoma. And Tevin, just as we're chatting, thank you for making the time for us today. You got a lot going on, and I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and how the Foundation for Liberating Minds came to be.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Groundworks, for doing this, for having us as a part of the work that you all see is invaluable here in the States, especially in those states that you all focus in. So appreciate that. My name is Tevin McDaniel. As Joe said, I use him, his pronouns. I'm a co-founder and serve as a community building coordinator for Foundation for Liberating Minds. We really use education as a tool for social change. We do that through trainings and workshops, community programming. And then lastly, our big dream was to build a school, which unironically is how this organization came to be. Me and two other of my friends were all graduating from the same school, going to school together for high school. The other two were in school together since elementary school. And the education that we got, we just wanted to see different, right? We wanted to see more access to other people who were around us in our communities, to be able to get the education that we were getting, which was significantly, in some spaces, higher than a lot of our other counterparts. And so one of our friends had a dream in June of 2017.
Literally had a dream.
Literally had a dream and said, in his dream, he was in a school that looked radically different than the schools we went to. And he called me and my other friend and said, hey, I want to do this. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how we get it done, but I want to do it. And that was in 2017. We're here now in 2025, still cultivating that idea, but broadening our foundation of what we believe in, our values, and what we really want to achieve in the process of trying to build this school.
Which is pretty amazing. I always love that story. Most folks obviously think they have a dream, but it's not necessarily always a literal dream, that you guys are out there trying to build off of and change lives, which is like the coolest thing. So listen, I want to get into this conversation, and I want you to tell us a little bit about some of the Foundation for Liberating Minds community programs, but particularly one called We the East Side, because I think it's a beautiful example of organizing that is for community by the community. So Tevin, give some insight into how the vision for We the East Side came about and what that programming actually looks like as you're putting it in action.
So it originally started because we understood if we wanted to build a school in a community, and we want to build it on the east side of Oklahoma City, if we're going to build a school in a community, we have to have relationships with the community, right? Mm-hmm. For so long, we've seen people come into communities, put in schools, and say, this is what we think is right for the community. And that's not the best way to sustain a school model in any community. You have to be able to have the buy-in from the people who are going to be sending their kids to that school. And so we always wanted to just sort of have and build a town hall around what do you want to see in a school? What are the needs that you don't have right now in schooling that you're seeing? What does access look like for some of the folks who need different learning, right? Who need to be held differently in a classroom, right? Because people learn so differently. What does that really look like? And what are the immediate needs that parents are facing? And so we created this program to hold a space that was not only going to be for the school, but also like as a community, how are we building and providing with the connections that we have and the partner organizations that are with us in this project? How can we implement the resources that we're doing already into this program with people who may not know who we are, or what we're doing? And so we started hosting these meetings monthly, trying to get people to be vulnerable, to build that connection. We feed people, right? And those first ones were really communication and trying to answer questions and really building. What we learned is not all the same people are going to come to the same events, and we're not going to always be able to reach everybody who lives on the east side. So how do you change that? You change it into going to knock on their doors. You go to where they are. And so we've cultivated a community walks aspect into Leading Eastside. So now what we're doing is, outside of some of the meetings, especially when the weather's bad, where we're just having conversations, now we're going and knocking doors with a brochure that we've created, that has a website that we've created, that has resources on a map, mapped out, that says you can go get food here, certain places. You can go get childcare here. You can go get mental health services here. You can go get all education here. All of these things are listed on a website that we've been able to create. That's a living and breathing website to be able to add different people who are doing things in the community that we may not know about. All to be able to say, we want to build the East Side. And we understand that it comes with living. Like, we have to be able to survive and live before we can force people to empower themselves to want to change, right? Like, folks are worried about putting food on their table, shelters over their head. They can't necessarily be worried about going out to vote and going out to do some of these other things, right? We have to be building from the bottom up so that they can empower themselves once they already are getting some more of those livable resources, right? And so now we've done these community walks. We've done the community walks now for 2 years, I believe. We've knocked over 1,000 doors. We've been able to hold a lot of different communications with people who've been able to connect with us in different ways that they were not really accustomed to, right? A lot of times when you're door knocking, you're going to give something, or you want not to give something, you're going to get something. You want people to do something for you. And even the people who were getting the volunteer to go knock the doors, it's a different experience for them to go into these spaces, not to be asking for something, but to be giving something, to be wanting relationship rather than saying, we need you to be doing X, Y, and Z. And so the relationships that we've been able to create, the way that we've been able to start shaping the way that the community starts receiving some of these things and thinking about some of these ideas, has been a blessing. And honestly, it's been really impactful on really just our work and how we've been able to just continue to connect in ways deeper than just, your everyday, going to knock on a door, say hi, and then leave. Like, we're getting people who are coming in to get resources on a weekly basis. Folks who are constantly trying to email or ask us questions around, where can I go to do this? Where can I go to do that? Right. And so being able to see that and to live it has been wonderful. It is still a growing thing. We are nowhere near knocking all the doors on the East Side that we need. There's about 40,000 doors in total. And that's just in census data and voting data. So there's obviously going to be some houses that might still be unlocked or unmarked. And so really just trying to continue to build out this program to connect the East Side fully and in a circle, right? In a full connected way, to say, like, this is who we are. This is some of the data that we've come across for the needs of people on the East Side. And this is how we can make steps to actually improve those things.
Devin, I love so much about what you just articulated, right? Like, one, kind of the basic part of any aspect of organizing, but like going out into a new community, knocking on a door and listening to people, right? Like, showing them the respect to go out there and actually ask, and then listening and responding. And so much of what you just articulated is also backed up by data, right? Some of the best anti-poverty initiatives the community can come up with are navigators that help show people where there are opportunities to meet their needs, how to get them, like literally where are they on a map, how you connect people to them. The studies that show the biggest aspects of economic mobility, the connectedness within community. Are there local organizations, navigators, people, nonprofits, churches, et cetera, that can lift people up, meet a need, and help people move? And that's what you're building, as you said, the interconnectedness here. But it starts with people and responding to community, and then building that, as you said, a circular thing that is tied together, which is awesome, man. So well done, bravo, and congrats. And I got to say, off of all of that, right, I mean, it would be doing a massive disservice not to mention the fact that you're not only involved with Groundwork projects through our organizing grant network with the Foundation for Liberating Minds, but you are also a graduating alumnus of the Organizing Accelerator, which is an annual organizing fellowship that Groundwork does with the NAACP. That is all about trying to, knowing that we have talent, Tevin, like you out there, how do we connect you with other organizers and give you the opportunities to build off of this incredible talent and skill set that you have to help you grow. And so just curious, since I got you, if how you would say that the time of the accelerator helped inform your organizing on the east side of Oklahoma, and conversely, and perhaps probably more importantly, how did your organizing with We the East Side influence what you brought to the accelerator?
So, one, obviously, I want, again, the opportunities that you all create have been amazing, right? For people to be able to be a part of these programs, to learn across the country is powerful. One thing that I will say too, the biggest thing that I love when I travel, especially like in this work, is figuring out how to connect different cities that are doing similar things to the city that I'm in, right? And so, like, to be able to go to Boston, to be able to see what they were doing in Chelsea in environmental justice, right? To be able to see the diversity in that 2 mile square area of land to be more than a mile of the state's waste, right? And to have over 40 different languages in that little area, right? Like, to be able to navigate a space like that is incredible, one, but also shows the dedication that people have to want change in their space. So, like, being able to go see that in Boston, being able to go to Jackson and see so much history, right? Like, the history in Jackson is unbelievable, but to also be with other young people, with surviving freedom riders, right? To be able to have conversations with folks who are really a part of that movement, really motivated and I wouldn't say changed, but more so directed my line of what do I want to do and why I'm doing it, right? Like, it almost narrowed it down for me to really focus on what is important to me and why it's important to me. Some of those stories, some of those experiences to be able to be a part of. And then secondly, the people that I met in that accelerator, I still communicate with, and I still get to be able to organize and think and like be think tanks with, right? I'm in conversation with one of the women right now about like how we're going to come up with another organizing program that can be helpful in her city, but also how can I help and potentially use it in my city and with the other people who could be in the accelerator, right? And really just that connection of knowing that there are other like-minded people, there are other people who want to do better in whatever specification they have, right? Like, Foundation for Liberating Minds is blessed because we are one of the larger umbrella organizations in terms of what we cover and what we do in terms of our work, whereas some other folks are very specific in the work that they focus on, right? And all of those facets were able to live and breathe within the organizing accelerator, and that's what I also really liked about it. And the lessons learned, how to really get started as an organizer, right? Like, what does it look like to tell your story? What is the importance of your story? Some of the council people that we met in Boston, right? Like, some of their stories and how they shaped their stories to get to the places that they are, right? Like, there were so many pieces that you just learn being with other people that are not dealing with the same thing as you all the time. And I think any opportunity for that is a wonderful opportunity. And the Organize Accelerator was not only that, but also helped me with organizing skills, with therapy. They did acupuncture therapy and sound therapy, right? Different ways to just rest, right? Like, these are things that I just got to learn and experience through the accelerator. And so I need to actually email because I want to become one of the mentors, because I really I really like the opportunity that it creates for people across the country.
Well, listen, we would obviously be thrilled about that, and like so many of these things, right? I'm grateful to hear that you got a lot out of that program, but it's folks that normally are facilitating and mentoring. They give a lot back to it, and we'd be so fortunate to have you as part of it too, continuing that. And what we're trying to build is build those relationships and build those networks to do exactly what you said, right? You take some of it with you give more of it out, and over time it does kind of cycle on through. I want to touch base briefly here while I still got you about a newer program that you guys have developed with We the Eastside in your community programming, and I'd love to hear a bit about how you guys came about it and how you pulled it together. But I don't want to. I want to let you tell the stories. But walk us through a little bit about your free community breakfast program.
So, I think really end of last year, middle of last year, we just had always had on our mind, like, how are we going to target the youth in so many of our community walks and our We the Eastsides? We want youth to be there, but we don't often get them there.
Mm-hmm.
And so how can we target our youth, especially as summer's coming up? And just as all these struggles are happening on the east side, like how are we providing that one very critical resource early in the morning, breakfast, right? Like, what does that look like? And so I've been able to partner with some churches because we've also just been trying to, one thing about the east side of Oklahoma City that people should know is we're in the Bible Belt, one, but two, on the east side, there's probably 50 churches, right? All denominations, but there's specifically a lot of Black churches on the east side, like over 20. So thinking about the spread outness of how some people are, how are we connecting more of the churches, as churches were places of organizing back in the day, right? So how are we using these churches as places to hold some of this, as youth are going to their churches every Sunday, every Wednesday, every whatever days they're doing programming, but also because we need to get more people involved in this process. So I got to connect with one big church here on the east side who helped co-host it. They cooked all the food. We got to do it in their space. We helped.
What were you making? What do people want?
Eggs. So we kept it basic: eggs, hash browns, turkey sausage, biscuits, and then you had orange juice, apple juice, all the jellies, honey, syrup, whatever you want.
And how many people came through? How many people are coming through now?
Well, we had about 20 in total, 15-ish kids, and then some parents. And so for the first one, it's good for the first one, but obviously want to continue to try to grow. Going to connect with a few more schools as the summers come in, right? Like can do them in the middle of the week instead of like on Saturdays and things. So really about to hammer down what that looks like for the summertime, and just to connect not only with food, but as they grow, want to have like elders come and just talk about how the east side has changed. Want to have people come and give history around just Oklahoma City and different areas, to also put in that education that some people are also not getting at their schools or at home even. And like, not to say that their parents aren't teaching them, but there's been a lot that hasn't been taught to us in general. So if we're thinking about generations, we just have a lot that we have to get back on track with around why Oklahoma is what Oklahoma is, why these things are going on, right? Like, we just have to get into that education. So want to add that education aspect into it too as we grow. But the program itself is really, just to be a constant place for refuge and resource for folks, especially youth.
So I love that for a lot of reasons, but you've brought up history a number of times over the course of that last answer, but of course of this conversation. And history of Oklahoma, probably not surprisingly, but far more textured, far more layered, far more complicated than I think most folks think. Obviously, a couple of years ago, we had that 100th anniversary of Greenwood, which had kind of burst onto the news after 2020 and a racial reckoning, and the history of Black Wall Street and what happened there, and how most of us didn't ever learn about it. Wasn't in my high school textbook, wasn't in my AP history textbook, right? And starting asking those questions about how do we not know, right? What else did we not know, and how do we not know? And obviously for Oklahoma, the enormously complex and rich but complicated tribal history we have there, right? With such a huge portion of the state being sovereign tribal territory, because many of those Native peoples were picked up and moved from the East Coast or East and moved west and had land taken from other tribal indigenous folks and given to them, right? So it's complicated in Oklahoma. It's complicated everywhere, but it's particularly complicated there. But you talk about that. You reference history several times there, and I think the project that you just talked about, right? It brings history to the present, is informed by history. You also talked about your time in Jackson, learning from those heroes of a civil rights movement and the Freedom Riders and the extraordinary history that Jackson has. But I want to ask you here, I know as we're wrapping up, but how do you think about that? And how does the kind of the history of Black organizing and liberation inform the work that you were doing with it? Free breakfast, and how you come up with the free breakfast program, and how you conceptualize that, and how you actually put that into action as part of We the East Side and the Foundation for Liberating Minds as a whole, like putting all of this together.
So it's actually really funny that you asked that, because it quite literally came from like Black Panther principles and like what the Black Panthers are doing back in the 80s, right? Like they were doing free breakfast programs. They were also doing Saturday schools. They were also doing like, those are the things that I think about, right? Like those are, and there's more than just them, right? But like the Clara Loopers, the Ralph Ellisons, folks who are in Oklahoma City, right? Who were in Oklahoma doing this organizing, doing the first organized sit-in in Oklahoma, in the country was in Oklahoma City, right? Like some of these things are rich in Oklahoma's history, and it also molds those of us who are doing work. And I think across the country, wherever they are, I would hope that ancestry of what folks are doing in those cities moves them within their work, right? And so I think really heavily about the history of what has been done in the past to be able to overcome some of these very similar obstacles, right? And so I think we don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. It is really, how are we changing it into a narrative that is for 2025 or for the 2020s as a whole, right? It's going to be very different than the 1980s, 1990s, the 1970s. And also, it's going to be the same sort of systemic problems that we're fighting, right? So like, as long as we can understand that education around what our ancestors have done, what the indigenous folks were doing back in the day, like Oklahoma has the history of the most Black, all Black cities and towns in the country. We had close to 100, right? And most of those were neighbored by very strong indigenous tribes, right? That relationship was strong and important. And just that history of how many people saw Oklahoma, how many Black people saw Oklahoma as a refuge as well. So it's also like that, like you said, it's a very complicated history, but it is the history that drives a lot of the work that we think about, that we do, and trying to bring back some of those same partnerships, coalitions, and ideas, things that they were doing, to the forefront today.
Oh, this conversation can go on for a long time, and I always learn so much from chatting with you. So thank you for making the time for us. Thank you for sharing that insight and a bit of your work with us and folks that are watching this. Really grateful for it and grateful for you. I want to give you the last word here, but tell us a little bit about what's on the horizon for the Foundation for Liberating Minds and what you're excited about.
So we have a community walks actually this Saturday, so I'm really getting prepared for that, excited for that, but also just thinking about, as we're going into this year, what is consistent for these breakfast programs, for the community walks, for the transformative and restorative justice work that we're doing, right? We're building a lot of different things to be sustainable over the years. We're trying to build up more community members. And so just really excited for the connections that are being made, the people who are willing to push the norm and to feel uncomfortable in places that are normally comfortable, to better themselves and to better this community and to better, hopefully, this world, right? It is liberation for everybody. And so
hurry up, my friend. Hurry up.
I'm trying.
Amen to that.